This story begins deep in the wild. A lion cub's desperate cry cuts through the savannah air, echoing like a call for help no one can ignore. Except tonight, the savannah wears water. You are standing knee-deep in a cypress slough, where knees of ancient trees push up like drowned statues and Spanish moss drips like old secrets. The cry isn't a roar, it's a thin, high chirp. What biologists call a meow chirp, the kind mountain lion kittens use when they're hungry or scared. It bounces across the tannin-dark surface, and your chest tightens because the sound isn't wandering. It's anchored. In this unforgiving land, survival is never guaranteed. So before we dive in, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy these emotional stories. Comment below your favorite animal, and listen, do you hear it? That plea again, shorter this time, strangled by distance. A thermal drone shivers against the twilight. Hotspots flicker, wading birds, a sun-warmed log, the faint smear of something larger. Your radio hisses, Ranger Cole on Channel 3. Avery, we've got a body heat distortion near the north hammock. Could be her. You follow the beam of Avery's lamp as it climbs the buttressed trunk and slides out over water the color of brewed tea. It's late fall and the marsh is low, edges exposed. Dry earth meets wet ambush, the perfect seam for a constrictor, because here in the southern Usita, Burmese pythons have rewritten the rules. They don't belong, but they're here, silent, patient, becoming the shape the river wants. You kneel. There, drag lines in the mud. 2 parallel furrows with pin-scratch marks where claws fought for purchase. Beside them, a wide, scalloped belly trail paints the shore like a secret signature. Python. The cub cries again, but fainter, as if muffled by brush or fear. Mountain lions, panthers as Floridians say, will circle back to their young, but a mother can be pulled into risk when hunger and protection collide. You whisper the fact to yourself, adult females average 100 pounds here. They avoid open water when they can. If she's near the line, something's wrong. The smell hits first, a river metal tang threaded with musk. Your gloved hand lifts a strand of fur snagged on a sore palmetto spine, pale and fresh. And then you see it. 30 yards ahead, a slick, storm-fallen log bridges open water to a reed island. On that log, motionless, ears flattened, a tawny shape shoulder deep in shadow. She's there, the mother, one forepaw jammed between slippery bark ridges, body angled like a sprung trap. The surface around the log wrinkles, soft ripples spreading, then stalling, the kind that happen when something moves under the surface to become still again. Python, Avery breathes. Dr. Lina Morales, the wildlife vet, crouches beside you, her kit open, fluids, oxygen cannula, antibiotic syringes lined like quiet promises. Your heart counts beats you don't have to spare. Pythons don't strike to poison. They anchor, seize, and fold. In Lioness in Water is a lioness robbed of leverage. You scan for the cub, but only Reed's answer. The cry stops. Out there the log gleams like a blade, and on its far side a shadow curls and uncurls, tasting the world with careful tongue flicks. Your radio pops again, faraway thunder stitched through static. Barometers dropping, Cole warns. If the front hits, current'll shift. You swallow. Wind is information. Current is force. Together, they turn a routine rescue into a calculation you can't get wrong. You raise your hand, fingers counting down silently. 3, 2. When you reach one, the water beside the log humps and parts the way a curtain moves before an actor steps on stage, and in the tall grass beyond the reeds, something else stirs. You pivot your light, and the world narrows to a circle of breath and bark. The paw prints you traced from the hammock weren't wandering. They were purposeful, tight together, moving low. The trackway tells a hard story. Short stride, toes splayed, dew claws pricked into mud. She'd been stalking along the high seam for crayfish and marsh rabbits, a mother trying to stretch calories, because nursing burns more energy than hunting. Then the trail veered, sharp, onto a natural ramp made from blown-down limbs. At the top, a slick trunk stretching to the reed island. A cross at salvation or a trap? Your radio coughs, then dies to hiss. You try again, nothing. Cell signal, forget it. The cypress canopy swallows bars like prey. You've trained for this. A team of 3 can manage a 6 to 8 foot python if it's clean ground, but logs and water change everything. You position your catch pole. Avery anchors the tail clamp on a long-handled bar. Lina stays shoreward, eyes flipping between the mother's ribs and the readouts on a small handheld pulse oximeter rigged with a clip you'll use later. Behind you, Cole wades into position with a shield board cut from marine ply, edges sanded smooth to slide between coils without tearing scales. Even here, even for an invasive, you respect the animal. Professional rescue is control, not cruelty. You speak low, easy girl, easy. Her ears quiver to your voice. Cougars communicate with tail and ear. The tiny flick she gives is not bravado, it's calculation. She wants to leave. She can't. Beneath her, a wet muscle shifts and a triangle head tests the air. Burmese pythons are ambush artists. They wait where prey bottlenecks, at burrow mouths, along game trails, or just off a log like this. Strike range. 1/3 of body length, faster than your eye. You feed this fact into your fear and let it become discipline. Avery nods. On your mark. You place the noose, breathe and count. 1, 2. The python slides off the near side, vanishes, then reappears at the far edge, a phantom line. It brushes the lioness's pinned paw. She flinches, contrasts sharp against the wet bark, but holds. You ease forward, and the log whispers under your weight. The sound is enough. The python freezes, then flicks up in a glossy, impossible S, mouth opening to show a pale inner geometry full of backward-leaning teeth built for purchase, not slicing. The strike doesn't come. It tastes the wind, learning you, heat, breath, salt, the drum of a big mammal in a small place. Cole's shield is ready. Avery's clamp is white-knuckled tight. Lina murmurs vitals you don't have yet but need to imagine. Her respiratory rate is fast. Watch the flank. 30 yards behind, the cub's cry floats and sinks like a lost feather. The mother turns her head halfway toward it, and the log twitches under her weight. You don't think, you move. The pole slides, the loop finds air, then scale. The python flexes. You draw up gentle, firm. It works until the current slaps back with the first finger flicks of the coming front. Water is muscle too. It reaches for your ankles, for the log, for the line between your plane and the river's plan. Your earpiece crackles a ghost syllable and dies outright. You look up at the storm's first bruise forming along the horizon, and from inside the reeds, the cub answers again, but this time the sound comes from somewhere it shouldn't, lower, closer and cut short like a breath pressed by something unseen. The first standoff doesn't look like a movie fight. It looks like stillness where stillness shouldn't be. The lioness is a statue on a knife of wood, every muscle braided, every whisker a tuning fork. The python is patience poured into shape, a river shadow curved in a patient question. Are you close enough? Is she tired enough? You answer with angles. Cole plants the shield edgewise, not to hit, but to interpose, to add a stubborn barrier between coil and cat. You guide your loop lower, aiming for just behind the head where muscle tapers to leverage. Facts sharpen courage. Pythons constrict by listening with their bodies. Each exhale is an invitation to tighten. Big cats survive entanglement by never gifting that rhythm. In water, though, lungs fight two opponents, panic and pressure. Avery tail, you whisper. The clamp floats inches above the scaled rope that is the python's mid-body. Lina, onshore, has a dart prepared but held in reserve. Sedating a swimmer risks drowning, and tonight, your math says hands over hypodermic. The lioness's trapped paw scrabbles. She finds a notch and hauls, but the bark is grease under rain's first spray. You lean, stretching, feeling the line between control and falling thin as a hair pulled through gloved fingers. The python moves first, not to strike but to slide, repositioning the world in its favor. Its head nicks the loop, contact, you lift and time breaks open. The snake whips, jaws opening in a pale pink bloom, and the loop skates over slick scales. Cole angles the board. The head taps wood. Teeth scrape harmlessly. You press, the pole bows, the noose tightens a breath, enough to guide. Avery lunges the clamp, catches meat. The python feels the insult and remembers rock and root. Its body finds an anchor under the log. The log answers with a groan from years of slow rot. Now you shout. The lioness hears the percussive word and tries again, shoulders heaving. Her other forepaw knives free. For an instant she's on 3 points, momentum towards safety. The python thinks faster than any 100-pound cat. Its body flows a ring around her wrist. Coils don't need speed when they have friction. The first rap is a question. The second becomes a law. Lina's voice is a metronome. Watch her chest. Count breaths. Don't let her exhale long. You can't tell the cat not to breathe. You can only change the god of physics near her. You slide the pole down and under, twist the head away from tendon, away from paw. The python fights with mindless grace, a muscle puzzle solving itself. Rain stipples the surface. The current wakes fully, shoving the log sideways. Your footing goes from probable to theoretical. You throw your weight into the pole. The noose catches bones like a seatbelt across a bad idea. The head talks, mouth stitched with teeth needles that glance off the board, leaving hair-thin white scratches. Avery growls through clenched teeth. I've got it, just... The clamp slips a fraction, then holds. The lioness screams, a raw, tearing sound that rips straight through your protective training and leaves you human again. Human and shaking and angrier than you can afford to be. You could end it quick with a dart to the snake, but water would tax the python's muscles, and a thrashing giant could roll the entire fight into deeper channel. The cub cries another syllable, the same chirp but strangled, and for the first time you sense another geometry of threat forming at the periphery. Not one serpent, but maybe two. In the sawgrass behind the reed island, a second pattern presses the green like a long breath held too long, and the rain, as if in answer, begins to pour. Rescue plans survive on timing, and timing is weather wearing a watch. The first fat drops turn to sheets in seconds, Sweetwater drumming every leaf, every board, every doubt. You shift grips, feeling the pole slick in your hands, knuckles squeaking inside rubber. Coal braces, board biting the log. Avery rolls the clamp hand over hand along the snake's body toward the tail, searching for leverage that will degrade the coil's reach. Lina moves closer on the bank, kit bag slung high, eyes never leaving the cat's ribs. Her breath shallow, she warns. Look at the flank. Short inhales, no full exhale. She's fighting the squeeze with little sips. You know the textbook. Constrictors don't crush to break bones. They tighten to stop blood flow and breathing, a precise, lethal hug. Counter is space. Create space, you save the chest. On a swaying log in rain with 100+ pounds of angry river muscle. Space is expensive. You change angles. Cole, rock the board. Gentle, I'll lift on 3. He nods, water streaming off his brim. 1, 2, 3. The board levers up a face width. You haul the pole sideways and up. The noose bites behind the head, drawing chin away from the cat's wrist. Avery drags the tail clamp back, stretching the python into an S shape it doesn't want. For a heartbeat, geometry bows to you. The coil loosens half an inch. The lioness sucks a breath, like a ship taking on air after surfacing. You hear it, a wet, ripping inhale, and then the current throws its opinion across all of you. The trunk shifts, a lazy roll that becomes a pivot. Your boots skate. The pole jolts. The snake spasms, muscles flashing under the velvet of rain-slicked scales. The coil snaps tighter than before. The lioness coughs, and you watch for the worst sign, stillness. Stillness doesn't mean calm. In wild medicine, stillness often spells surrender. Dart, Avery's voice is a cliff edge. Lina is already weighing dosages in her head. A sedated cat on a log is a tragedy. A sedated snake in water is chaos. But choose wrong and time chooses for you. Negative, Lina decides, the call steady. Give me 10 seconds to set up O2 if we get her free, you push. She shoulders a small tank, lines primed, mask ready. You change tactics, tail control gambit. Avery, you own the tail. I'm going to try a jaw bar. He shifts, clamps lower, his body a metronome of careful strength. You slide a short, curved bar off your belt, aluminum, foam grip, your last resort tool to pry the mouth, if it gets a hold where you can't follow. You don't want to use it. You might have to. The python watches you watch it, tongue sampling rain, as if this storm were a menu. Lightning folds the world into a white page. Thunder writes its signature over your bones. The cub squeaks, so close now that your skin prickles. You risk a glance left. The grass parts the smallest fraction, a miniature wake surging through green, too fast for wind, too purposeful for chance. Your stomach drops with the calculation you didn't want to be right about. The plan was 3 humans, 1 python, 1 cat, 1 storm. But the marsh doesn't care about plans. Somewhere just out of sight, a second coil of muscle rehearses its line, and the next move you make will either close this story or split it in 2. In the thrum of rain, the log gives another complaint, long, hollow, a sound like a door beginning to open into dark water. And in the tall grass, something heavier than wind begins to slide your way. The rain turns the river into a velvet drum, every drop a beat you must move between. You shift your weight, feel the log's slick skin flex beneath your boots, and commit to the angle that gives you the python's head. The noose tightens a breath, the board holds a breath, and the lioness steals a breath. For one fragile instant, all 3 of you share the same thin ribbon of time. Then the snake does what waterborne hunters do best. It disappears. Not up, not forward, down. The weight at the pole evaporates, and the line goes light. Your shoulders jerk at the sudden absence. Your knees shoot to correct, and the world slips a degree toward the river's mouth. You fight the reflex to stab blindly where it vanished. A blind jab is panic's signature, and panic spends lives. Instead, you read the surface. Constrictors are not ghosts. They are bodies that must move, and moving leaves signs. The rain writes static, yes, but beneath the confetti, you catch a seam of motion where the tannin is subtly pushed aside, a long bulge under the log that isn't wood. The snake has found a brace, a fulcrum you can't see. A moment later, the head reappears, not where it went down, but 2 arm lengths farther along, slick as a thought you can't quite hold. And it swipes toward the lioness's injured foreleg, like a dark question mark, closing its curve. You throw the pole across and catch jaw hinge. Teeth skate along aluminum with a zipper's hiss. Cole shoves the board into the path, not to smash, but to interrupt. And Avery drags tail clamp into a straighter line, denying the serpent the corkscrew it needs. The lioness takes the invitation with everything she has. She levers her shoulders, peels her trapped paw free with a wet, ragged sound, and surges toward the island. The python refuses to accept the rewritten story. It laces a new loop around her wrist, as if the past were a knot it could retie. You talk to her as if words were hands. Easy, girl. Keep the chest high. Acts become tools when you say them out loud. A mountain lion's lungs sit forward. Keep the head up to keep the airway above the press. Never let the long exhale. Give her short breaths to deny the snake rhythm. You lift her chin with the pole's shaft, a gentle lever, while Avery pries the loop off skin without tearing scales. It's a grim courtesy to a predator you do not hate. The coil loosens a finger's width. The cat's ribs flutter like a bird trapped against glass. Then the river reminds you that physics isn't sentimental. A brown swell slaps the log broadside, and the whole bridge sloughs a foot. You lose the good angle and grab for the bad one because there isn't a third. For a heartbeat, your weight, and the cats and the serpents are a mobile hung on invisible thread. The head snaps again, and this time it doesn't miss. Teeth find the lioness's fur just above the pad, a dozen backward-leaning needles built to hold, not cut. The cat doesn't scream. She growls from somewhere older than language and tries to pull away, which is exactly what the teeth want. You slide the short bar in from below and lever gently against the hinge. There is a proper force for this, enough to open, not enough to break. The mouth yields by degrees, the way a jammed door yields to patient hands, and you feel hope enter through the widening gap. The jaw gives. The teeth let go. The cat lurches free, half scrambling, half skating toward the reeds. She makes 3 panicked steps and then stops dead, not because she wants to, but because something in the grass tells her what you already fear. The space ahead isn't empty. It's waiting. And in that thin, humming pause before the next move, the river goes very quiet, as if listening to which side of the story will speak first. You don't see the second python at first. You feel it as a wrongness in the pattern of wet leaves, a line where there should be a scatter. The cub's last chirp came from this direction, and your skin knows what your eyes are catching up to. There is a mirror of the threat you've been fighting, set in the reeds like a snare built from patience. The mother knows it too. She holds herself in a crouch that is all suspension and restraint, claws sunk into the log's soft grain, eyes on the green wall that keeps its secrets by trembling just enough to look like wind. You work the first python into a disadvantaged shape and hand that posture to Cole. "Hold this geometry," you tell him, and he nods, board wedged, arms steady. Avery wades up onto the log beside you, boots trying to find the narrow punctuation marks where traction still exists. "I've got tail," he says, breath calm by training, not by ease. Behind you, Lina has oxygen ready, a catheter kit open, fluids hung on a makeshift hook because improvisation is what medicine does when buildings are far away. Her voice threads the rain. "If you get her to me, I can stabilize. Watch for shock. Look for gum color, capillary refill. If she wobbles, we go to ground." You take one step toward the reed line, then another, the pole now an extension of balance, more than restraint. Here is the midway point of every rescue story, the hinge where the chapter pages rub together. You've fought, you've gained, and now the world asks what you've really learned. Recap the math. One mother lion exhausted, foreleg abraded and hypoxic. One python partially controlled, dangerous but managed by design. A second python likely staged at the reed edge where the log meets concealment. One cub somewhere beyond, silent now, which is either mercy or menace. Wildlife truth keeps you from romantic mistakes. Pythons don't hunt to be cruel. They hunt because hunger is a law. They anchor by striking, then loop around chest or neck, tightening at exhale. Their heart has valves to tolerate oxygen dips. Their jaw unhinges at the quadrate bone to swallow prey larger than their head. If a kitten was taken, it would be swallowed head first to fold limbs flat. The silence you hear might be aftermath. It might be fear. It might be a small life wedged under a mat of reeds, waiting for a world to change. The reeds part a hand-width, and a pale mouth lances out at the space between you and the cat, so fast it looks like the reins simply leaped. You jam the pole forward and meet it mid-line, not to stab, but to deflect. Teeth scrape and slide past, the head skids off metal, and the snake withdraws into the tissue of green, like a stitch pulling tight. You don't chase, you hold. The next strike will read your last move and adjust. You adjust first. You shift left, placing your weight where the log's heartwood still holds, and invite the head to appear at a new angle. It does. You swing and catch just behind the skull, a clean loophole that puts the hinge under your control. Avery drops the first tail and lunges for this one's mid-body, clamping down with both hands, and a tool you use only when you have to, a padded fork that pins without crushing. The snake whips and throws a sheet of rain into the air that returns to your face like a slap. The mother flinches and nearly bolts past you to land on reeds that will not hold her. You press a palm to her shoulder, not to own but to suggest. Stay. One more breath. One more move. Behind you, the first python thrums against Cole's board, reminding you that victories don't stack. They pile up, shifting and threatening to slide. "We don't have a minute," Cole warns, and you know he's right. You feel your arms accounting in real time, lactic burn, tremor onset, grip fatigue. You consider the trank, because you have to consider everything, but you also consider the way a sedated snake becomes a loose rope with a mind of its own when half awake. The cub doesn't speak. The reeds breathe. And from somewhere down current, thunder answers in a voice that says, decision time is not next. It is now. You choose the commit that leaves no room for regret. Avery, pin that head. "I'm going jaws," you say, and he nods, his body settling into the bone-deep rhythm of work done at the edge of safe. You slide the short bar under the second python's mouth, find the hinge you cannot see, and press with the quiet authority you would use to open a stuck window. Resistance, then yield. You steer the head away from the log, away from the mother's foreleg, and toward open water where thrashing drains strength, not lives. The snake boils, but the angle is yours. For the first time in 10 minutes that have felt like a year, The space in front of the lioness is empty enough to be called a path. She takes it. 2 steps, 3. Her back paw slides. She recovers. She measures the next distance with that predatory intelligence that is all calculus and nerve. You do not grab, you do not shout, you are gravity set to a kinder setting. To me, you murmur, and her ears flick to the shape of your voice. When she reaches Lina's line, the vet slides in with practiced grace, keeping herself small, offering the mask not like a trap, but like an answer. Oxygen whispers. The cat resists a second, then allows the strange comfort as if air could be a promise she can choose to believe. Field medicine turns fact into hope. Hypoxia starves muscle and mind. Supplemental oxygen can buy focus, and focus saves footing. Shock steals warmth even in warm rain. A foil blanket becomes a miracle. Fluids fight the blood pooling that constriction invites. You watch the gums, pink returning from pale, and count breaths not greedily, but like someone witnessing a held note being sustained. The cat steadies, but the interval between steady and safe is still a canyon. You and Avery back the second python away from the log, muscles burning, forearms alive, with the electric chatter that precedes cramp. Goal calls, first snake slipping, and you pivot your attention like a spotlight. 2 threats, 2 leashes, 1 team. You line them both, so neither can braid your lines into a disaster. The river tries anyway, throwing a sideways shove that makes every tool feel suddenly heavier. You plant, you breathe, you make the next right move. A voice in your head asks for the recap the audience at home needs, and you give it, not to the camera you don't have, but to your own scattered adrenaline. We found her pinned by a python, freed her breath, fought the tail, uncovered a second ambush at the reed lip, turned that threat, and now, with oxygen hissing and rain fading to a softer patter, we are down to execution. The cub is silent, but not necessarily gone. If it lives, it is small and hidden and terrified. If it does not, the mother will still search. Either way, your next chapter is the same. Get her off this knife of wood and onto ground where paws beat physics instead of begging it. You coordinate the exit like a dance learned by heart. Cole eases pressure without letting the first snake claim more world. Avery and you lower the second until it can go where it came from, away from the log and into deep water where cold will discourage bravado. Lina guides the mother across the final reach, her voice a metronome of calm. The lioness slips from log to sodden hummock, legs trembling, tail lashing once, twice. You expect a bolt into cover. Instead, she turns her head toward the reed island and makes a noise that is not quite a call and not quite a warning. It is a question. The rain holds its breath. The marsh waits. And just when you convince yourself that the answer will be silence, a small, thread-like mew replies from somewhere under the woven mat of reeds, so faint you think you might have dreamed it. The sound is real because the mother hears it too. Her entire frame changes, ears up, spine long, the exhaustion masked by purpose that roars back like fire finding fresh air. You edge to the hummock at her shoulder, keeping your profile low, making your hands slow, your breath available but unobtrusive. Easy, you say, because easy is how you invite a wild heart to believe you are not here to take what she has left. Lina reads the room with you and dials the oxygen back, leaving the mask close but not forced. The cat's chest inflates more fully now, a sure sign your earlier fight bought her time she can use. Reed islands are architecture. They are rafts built from roots and dead stems, floating, flexing, forever almost sturdy. A kitten could worm beneath and find a pocket of almost ground. A larger body would collapse the roof. You pick at a point where water wells up from below, gently parting stems until they become a curtain instead of a wall. The smell that rises is green and old and stitched with the iron note of mud. You listen, then touch the mat again, and the mew answers, closer, tinny with fear. This is where the rulebook is both scripture and sketch. You do not take a cub from a mother capable of defending it. You do not leave a cub to drown because you are too reverent to act. The middle path is a kindness you build inch by inch. You slide gloved fingers into the gap and raise the reed roof just enough to keep water from surging into the pocket below. "I need a hand," you say without looking. And Avery is there, palm under your palm, his strength turning your care into a stable arch. Cole, freed from board duty, stands ready with a dry towel tucked into his jacket like a talisman. The cub moves inside the little cave you've made, a shiver of life against your fingertips. You let your knuckles become a wall it can push against, an invitation to climb instead of a grab to fear. Mountain lion kittens are born with spots that fade as they grow. They carry a wild sweetness that can trick a human into forgetting that this is not a pet. It is a future predator whose best chance is a mother, not a savior in boots. The small body finds your hand, front paws scrabbling, back paws catching, and then it's in your palm, half the size of your forearm, heavier than it looks because fear weighs more than flesh. You do not pull the cub to your chest. You move it past your own silhouette and into the space between you and the mother, letting her see the entire transaction. Her pupils flare, her whiskers spread, and she steps forward with a deliberation that turns fear into reverence. You lower the kitten onto the hammock and lean away, as if distance could be a bow. The cub makes a noise like a hiccup and presses its face into her chest. She mouths it without biting, lifting it by the scruff with a tenderness that collapses the world into a circle no wider than two animals touching. Lina murmurs, "Check for limb use because injuries aren't always loud." You watch the kitten's legs bicycle in the air, paws flexing, all four firing. Good signs. The mother turns her head toward the reed gap again, as if counting. Your gut tightens. One voice, one body. Many litters are 2 or 3. The math leaves a space you don't say out loud. You part the mat farther and listen until your ears hum. Nothing answers. Perhaps this was a single. Perhaps the storm took what it wanted earlier. Perhaps silence is mercy. The mother settles her cub against her foreleg and looks at you from a distance too short to feel comfortable. There is no gratitude in her gaze. There is a calculation of risk and need. You lower your eyes because dominance helps no one here. She breathes long and without a catch. The oxygen hiss quiets. The rain fades to a whisper against leaves. It feels like the chapter should close, but stories like this do not end on a gift. They end on ground. And the ground between hummock and hammock is still a gauntlet of slick roots, shallow channels, and the memory of 2 hunters that haven't left, only accepted a redirection. For now. Moving mother and cub through a live marsh is not a parade. It's a negotiation with 1,000 small dangers. You map a route that keeps to high seams, fingers indicating where routes become bridges and where bridges become lies. Call Scouts 10 steps ahead, testing each patch with a measured weight, so your next choice isn't a guess in a brown mirror. Avery walks behind, eyes roving waterlines for the kind of disturbance you've learned to fear without naming. Lina carries her kit like a sacred bundle, prepared for the stumble you plan to prevent. You let the mother lead because leadership is the kindest form of respect here. She finds a footing you wouldn't, weaving her own path through grass with a confidence that is equal parts instinct and exhaustion's blunt courage. The cub hangs from her mouth, limp in trust, tail briefly alive when she steps onto a firmer patch that smells like earth instead of water. You have space to breathe, and breathing makes room for facts again. The kind you tuck into quiet sentences for the audience that will hold this with you. Pythons can remain submerged for up to half an hour. Their metabolism so slow that waiting is a kind of superpower. Mountain lions, though comfortable swimmers, avoid open water because a cat's best weapons, speed, pounce, angle, get blunted when buoyancy steals ground. You pass the place where the first fight began, and it looks smaller than it felt, a truth that always surprises you after survival. The log is just a log now, one slash of wood across brown. The board bears thin white lines, where teeth try to write a different ending. The reed mat you opened has already begun to settle, closing the door you made as if embarrassed by its brief betrayal. The storm moves off to the east, pulling the light with it, and the air takes on that after-rain clarity that makes colors briefly truer. Halfway to the hammock, the mother freezes. You freeze with her because ignoring a wild thing's warning is a mistake you only make once. You hear nothing, which is not the same as there being nothing. Then from the channel on your left, a slow surface bulge rolls, like a shoulder under a blanket. Not a snake this time. The pattern is different, wider, the wake a little square. An alligator would be a new chapter you do not have pages for. You reassess angles in 3 heartbeats and choose the route that lifts you onto a fallen limb, arched like a question. The cat follows, without asking why your feet pick that curve. Her instincts agree with your caution, and that agreement becomes a brief, wordless covenant. On the limb, the cub stirs, tiny paws kneading the air as if testing a dream. The mother shifts her grip, adjusts for comfort, and steps down onto the last tongue of mud before the hammock's dry promise. You are 2 paces behind when the mud gives with a sigh and your right leg sinks to the knee, a sudden trap that jerks your balance toward the channel you just avoided. Avery catches your shoulder before gravity can finish its sentence. You wrench free of the sucking pull with a noise that's half laugh, half warning, and scramble onto the hammock's first hummock, heart galloping as if you'd run a mile. The cat doesn't bolt at your struggle. She watches, assesses, then resumes, every step a decision made and remade. The hammock rises under your boots, oak roots discovering your soles like old friends. Relief is an emotion and also a chemical. You feel it flood and then recede, because the last meters matter as much as the first. In the opening between 2 palmettos, dry leaves gather like a welcome mat. The mother steps onto them and lays the cub down, just for a second, to flex cramped jaws. You take 1 step closer, hands open to the air, and the cub peeps once, almost conversational. It is the smallest sound of victory you've ever heard. But somewhere behind you, the river still ticks, the way a clock ticks in a room where you've survived something you'll remember forever. Daylight filters through the hammock in bars, yellow and green, the forest's own quiet applause. Lina kneels a respectful distance away and checks what she can check without turning care into interference. The mother's stance, the bore of her pupils, the set of her shoulders. She's weight-bearing on the once-trapped foreleg, favoring it but not guarding it with that tight, protective frame that means pain has the wheel. You feel yourself begin to unclench from the inside out, like a fist deciding it can be a hand again. There is work left. Documentation is not bureaucracy here. It's the way knowledge builds a ladder for the next team. Cole photographs the bite marks, small arcing pinpricks that will need cleaning if infection is to be kept at bay. Lina flushes a superficial scrape with saline when the mother allows it. A tiny moment of trust bought by quiet presence and good timing. You discuss softly the aftercare possibilities. Remote camera traps placed along the hammock edge to ensure the pair moves and feeds. A plan to leave a protein source at a distance if the mother shows signs of flagging. A list of watchwords that will make your radios feel like lifelines again when night falls. Facts again, because facts are calming. A mother mountain lion can move her young one at a time, caching them in a series of safe nooks while she hunts. Stress can interrupt milk letdown, but safety and hydration restore it. Rattling breath earlier could have been anxiety and water spray, not pulmonary compromise. Oxygen bought you margin, and margin turned into choice. You frame these truths in your head the way you will one day frame them on a screen, because passing them on is part of the rescue too. The cub tests its legs, tottering with that precarious courage only the very young dare. It places a paw on your boot, and you feel the phantom impulse to reach, to touch, to claim a souvenir of softness from a day that gave you mostly edges. You don't. The greatest kindness is to leave no fingerprints on a life that must remain wild. The mother watches the exchange without comment, then scoops her young back into the doorway of her chest, turning her body into a windbreak against a breeze that barely moves the palmetto fans. You listen to the hammock's language. Woodpeckers tick. A single frog proposes a song and no one answers. Far off, thunder gives one last polite cough like an old actor leaving the stage. The river smell recedes into leaf and loam. Your own breath lengthens, the adrenaline slow to leave but willing, finally to stand down. You remember the first cry, that thin needle of sound that threaded the entire night together, pulling you through storm and coil and mud to this quiet patch of ground. You could call it luck. You could call it skill. In truth, it was discipline laid over compassion and a team's practiced trust. You gathered the last of your gear, each piece going back into its place, with the automatic care of people who know that order is a survival trait. Cole rolls the board under his arm and grins, the expression lopsided and startled, as if his face is relearning how to do it. Avery wrings rainwater from his sleeve and mutters that he'll feel his forearms for days. Lina closes her kit and sits for a moment on a root, chin tipped up, eyes closed, the posture not of exhaustion but of thanks. You stand, and the mother stands too, as if mirroring you, and in that brief symmetry there's a message you do not put into words. She takes the cub up again and melts into the understory with the kind of economy only a wild body possesses. Leaves tremble once, then hold. The space she occupied becomes forest again. You wait a full minute because patience is part of gratitude. Then you turn toward the water you came from. It looks ordinary now, which is how it hides its teeth. You know better, and you will remember. You step back into the marsh's margin, and as you do, a long, distant ripple crosses the channel and vanishes. Maybe wind, maybe memory, maybe a reminder that peace here is negotiated daily. But in the cooled air after the storm, it feels enough like a benediction to let you breathe. Slowly, the day releases its grip. The storm's edge dissolves beyond the cypress spires, and the hammock exhales a clean, leaf-scented breath that seems to settle into your bones. The mother and her cub are gone to the places only they know, paths stitched through palmetto fans and oak shadows, destinations chosen by instinct older than maps. You stand where the light pours in low and golden and let your heartbeat match the softer rhythm of a forest remembering itself. The log behind you is just wood again. The reed island mends its small window. Even the river, so insistent an hour ago, folds into a hush that carries the faintest murmur of frogs waking to a gentle evening. You think of the way her eyes met yours, not as a promise, not as a debt, but as two creatures sharing a moment where survival aligned. There is a comfort in that plain truth. You did not tame the wild tonight. You moved carefully within it and left it whole. In the fading light, small birds thread the air with simple calls, and a breeze lifts the moss in slow, thoughtful gestures. The danger has passed, peace has returned, and the savannah rests once more. You shoulder your pack, trade one quiet look with your team, and begin the easy walk out, souls finding the high ground by habit, breath long and unhurried, grateful for the day that turned toward life.